Saudi normalization with Israel requires Palestinian state, says Saudi Foreign Minister. Prince Faisal bin Farhan quashes speculation that Saudi Arabia may be set to establish full diplomatic ties with Israel. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister has said Saudi Arabia would only normalize ties with Israel within a plan that would deliver a sovereign state to Palestinians, quashing speculation that the kingdom may soon become the latest Arab country to establish full diplomatic relations with Israel. What we need to make happen is a peace deal that delivers a Palestinian state with dignity and with a workable sovereignty that Palestinians can accept, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud said on Friday. Prince Faisal was addressing an online talk at Med 2020, a yearly international forum held every year in Italy's capital Rome, bringing together world leaders. He said Saudi Arabia envisaged normalization of ties with Israel in exchange for the creation of a Palestinian state within the 1967 borderlines. That deal would have to be negotiated, but what is important now is to bring back Israelis and Palestinians to the negotiating table to work towards a fair deal, Prince Faisal said. The so-called Abraham Accords were signed in September to normalize ties between Israel and the United Arab Emirates (UAE) and Bahrain. The agreements, brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, included a freeze by Israel on planned annexation of Palestinian land. Palestinian officials condemned the normalization as a stab in the back of the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian people. Prince Faisal said a normalization of ties with Israel has long been part of Saudi Arabia's vision. It was first put on the table in Fez in 1982 by then Crown Prince Fahad, he said. We still have that same vision, whereby Israel becomes a normal part of the region, where it has fully normal relations with the neighbors. What we need to make it happen is to deliver a Palestinian state. The two-state solution closely reflects the Arab Peace Initiative, which was proposed by Saudi Arabia in 2002. The initiative called for normalized relations between Israel and other Arab states in exchange for a full withdrawal by Israel from lands it occupied in the 1967 war, including the Golan Heights, East Jerusalem and the West Bank. The initiative was re-endorsed over the years by the Arab League but never implemented, as Israel continued its occupation and settlement expansion in the West Bank. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so you can get notified whenever new Bible prophecy news videos are uploaded. In related news, Jordan presses for independent Palestinian state in meeting with Israel. Jordanian FM Ayman Safadi tells Israeli FM Gabi Ashkenazi, there is no alternative to a two-state solution, between Israel and the Palestinians. Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi has held a rare meeting with his Israeli counterpart to press for the restart of stalled negotiations between Palestinians and the Jewish state. Thursday's meeting came days after Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas visited Jordan as part of an Arab tour to raise support for the Palestinians after Joe Biden won last month's U.S. presidential election. During the meeting at King Hussein, Allenby Bridge crossing between Jordan and the Israeli-occupied West Bank, Safadi said the creation of an independent Palestinian state was key to ending the conflict with Israel. There is no alternative to a two-state solution, between Israel and the Palestinians, he told Israeli Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi, quoted by the official Petra news agency. It is necessary to return to the negotiating table according to international law in order to find a real solution to achieve a just peace, Safadi said. In other news, Israel heads to elections, nothing is different but everything has changed. Netanyahu is looking strong as his latest government collapses around him. But fundamental shifts in society mean voters are more polarized than ever. A final date for a new election has yet to be set, but it is hard to believe that one can be avoided after the Wednesday vote in Israel's parliament, the Knesset. The election could happen in March 2021 or there could be an agreement to postpone it to May or even June. The polls, as noted, currently foresee success for the right-wing parties and there is certainly a reasonable chance they will prevail. But even if that were to happen, and it must be said that there is still a lot of time until then and things can change, a victory of that nature would seem incapable of healing the rift within Israeli society. Israel today is an unremitting occupier and perpetually disintegrating. It is still too early to know where these contradictory trends may lead. Also, UN warns 2021 shaping up to be a humanitarian catastrophe. Next year is shaping up to be a humanitarian catastrophe, and rich countries must not trample poor countries in a stampede for vaccines. To combat the coronavirus pandemic, top UN officials told the 193-member UN General Assembly on Friday. World Food Programme (WFP) Chief David Beasley and World Health Organization (WHO) head Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus spoke during a special meeting on COVID-19, which emerged in China late last year and has so far infected 65 million globally. The pandemic, measures taken by countries to try to stop its spread, and the economic impact have fueled a 40% increase in the number of people needing humanitarian help, the United Nations said earlier this week. It has appealed for $35 billion in aid funding. 2021 is literally going to be catastrophic based on what we're seeing at this stage of the game, said Beasley, adding that for a dozen countries, famine is knocking on the door. He said 2021 was likely to be the worst humanitarian crisis year since the beginning of the United Nations, 75 years ago, and we're not going to be able to fund everything, so we have to prioritize, as I say, the icebergs in front of the Titanic. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and his top officials have also called for COVID-19 vaccines to be made available to all and for rich countries to help developing countries combat and recover from the pandemic. Tedros appealed for an immediate injection of $4.3 billion into a world vaccine sharing program. We simply cannot accept a world in which the poor and marginalized are trampled by the rich and powerful in the stampede for vaccines, Tedros told the General Assembly. This is a global crisis, and the solutions must be shared equitably as global public goods. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And stay tuned to Watchman Report for more Bible prophecy news.